Hello, welcome to your video on subtracting integers. By the end, you will be able to subtract integers to solve real-world problems. To subtract integers, the biggest thing you're going to want to remember is to add the opposite. The reason for that is because it's just typically easier to add, plus you've already learned how to add integers, so this makes it really easy. The first example I have for you is 3 minus 5. So what you're going to do is change it. The first number doesn't change at all. You're going to change the subtraction sign into an addition sign. So that sign here changes. It's the opposite sign and the opposite operation. So then the following, so add, and then the opposite, you're going to take that 5, and it's going to be the opposite of 5, which in this case is negative 5. So you're going to change that to a negative 5. In algebraic terms, it would be A plus the opposite of B. Next one, this is just quick overview. You're going to leave the first number. You never ever change the first number. So that's going to stay a 3. And then you add the opposite. The opposite of negative 5 is 5. Same with variables. First one never changes, and then you add the opposite, and the opposite of negative b is positive b. Right? How do I subtract integers using picture models? Well, the very first thing, like always, is going to be to add the opposite. Anytime you're subtracting, you'll want to add the opposite. You're going to also want to ask yourself 2 questions. How many 0 pairs, and what's left? Same exact questions as adding, because you're changing the subtraction into an addition problem. Your first example here is negative 6 minus negative 2. So you're going to keep the first number the same. You're going to change the subtraction sign into an addition sign, and then you're going to find the opposite number. So an opposite of negative 2 is just positive 2. Now, you don't have to write that plus sign that I just did, but you can. So this sign right here you don't necessarily have to have, as long as you know it's a positive 2. Then you're going to go ahead and solve. So negative 6 and then 2 using a picture model. You're going to have 6 negatives and 2 positives. And then 0 pairs would be this one and this one. What's left? 4 negatives. So your answer is negative 4. Another example, second example for you. 3 minus 5. So again, change it at first. So first number stays, change that sign, and then find the opposite of 5, which is negative 5. I like to put it in parentheses, but you don't have to. Positive 3 and negative 5. 0 pairs then would be these. What's left? Negative 2. So my answer is going to be negative 2. Practice problems. There are only 2. Why don't you draw the picture models that go with them and solve for the answers? Pause the video. Alright, using your pictures, you should have gotten a couple different answers. The first one, you should have had an answer of negative 3, and the second one, you should have had an answer of negative 6. If you didn't get those, you should be trying to figure out why. If not, if you can't do it, put a little sad face, mark that problem so that we can talk about it in class. Next one, how do I subtract integers using the scoreboard method? Again, you're still going to use the same concepts we did with adding. So all you have to do is add the opposite. Once we've added the opposite, normal adding goes into play. So who wins by how much is the questions we're going to answer. First example, we have 2 minus negative 7. We're going to add Second number doesn't change. Oh, I should probably put that in a different color then. Keep it the same. Your sign changes to adding, which means you need the opposite of -7, which is +7. 2 plus 7, now that tends to be really easy math, but let's practice using the scoreboard anyway, team positive and team negative. 2 is positive, 7 is positive, for a grand total of 9 to 0. Team positive wins by 9, which means my answer is 9. Second example for you, 4 minus 8. The 4 does not change. We change our subtraction sign to adding, and we take the opposite of 8, which is -8. Now we're going to use the scoreboard method, team positive and negative. 4 is positive, 8 is negative. Who wins? Negative. By how much? They won by 4, so my answer then is -4. Time to practice. This time I gave you 3 examples, or 3 practice problems. Please solve these using the scoreboard method. So you're going to answer who won by how much, and pause the video and check in with when you're done. All right, you should have your answers now. If you don't get these correct, then you should be checking your work and finding your mistake. Again, if you can't figure it out, put a little frowny face or star something to indicate you need help with that. But here are your answers to those 3 questions. All right, in the real world, where do we see subtracting of integers? First one in red, the temperature in Montana dropped 100 degrees in one night. It was 44 degrees to start. What is the final temperature after that drop? What we're going to do is use math. Dropped 100 degrees is key, and it was 44 degrees to start. So we know that 44 degrees is positive, and then dropped 100 degrees means we're decreasing by 100. So here's our problem. That is a subtraction problem, so now we're going to add the opposite. So 44 plus, and then the opposite of 100 is -100. And then we can use scoreboard. Positive 44, -100. Who wins? Negative wins by how much? They won by 56. So the answer then is going to be -56. You're going to want to put a label on it, -56 degrees, because we're talking about temperature. All right, the next one, your bank account had a balance of -$6, and then you spent another $7. How much do you have in your account now? So keywords, -$6, and then you spend another $7. We're starting with -6. That's negative already to begin with. And then you are taking out your spending, that's subtracting. You're spending another $7. Okay, so now we have our problem -6 minus 7. We're going to add the opposite, so -6 stays the same, plus, and then the opposite of 7 is -7. Here's our new problem. We're going to use positive and negative. Positive, well, there aren't any. Negative, I have I have 6 and 7, which means the final score was 0 to 13. Who won? -1 by how much? 13. So my answer is -13, but we've got to add context to it. We're talking about money. So the final answer would be -$13 in your bank account. All right, you have reached the end of your video. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.